Chapter 18. The rumor began 3 days later. Not loud, not direct, just enough to be heard. They say Captain Gu asked about Lin Qingshuang. They say he came twice to the records room. They say they knew each other before. Lin Qingshuang let it spread. Rumors were tools. Like grain or ink, they had to be handled correctly. Zhao summoned her again. You know what people are saying, he said, tone cautious. Yes. And it's true. Yes. Zhao leaned back slowly. You didn't report this relationship. There was nothing to report, Lin Qingshuang replied evenly. The engagement was registered years ago. Zhao's eyes sharpened. Registered? She handed over a folded document. Old. Stamped. Undeniable. Zhao read it twice. This changes things, he muttered. Yes, Lin Qingshuang agreed. It stabilizes them. Outside, Lin Milin overheard the exchange. Her face drained of color. Engagement. Protection. A soldier. She finally understood why she had lost so completely. Not because Lin Qingshuang was ruthless, but because she had always been prepared. The confirmation moved upward quickly. County level, then prefecture. No objections were raised. A decorated officer carried weight that records alone could not. Gu Yanzhou returned a week later. This time, openly. He arrived with formal papers. Zhao greeted him personally. Captain Gu, he said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Congratulations. Gu Yanzhou returned the nod. Thank you. The engagement announcement was brief.
No celebration. No banquet.
Just acknowledgement. 2 names linked. 1 signature added. Lin Qingshuang stood beside Gu Yanzhou, posture calm, expression neutral. Someone whispered. She climbed high. Someone else replied. No. She was already there. That night, Gu Yanzhou stayed in the commune guest room. They spoke once. Briefly. Any objections? He asked. None that matter, Lin Qingshuang replied. He nodded. This was not romance. It was reinforcement. The effects were immediate. Labor challenges stopped. Complaints softened. No one questioned Lin Qingshuang's decisions openly anymore. A soldier's name carried consequences. Lin Milin avoided her entirely. In the space, Lin Qingshuang reviewed long-term plans. Marriage would come later. Timing mattered. Visibility mattered more. Gu Yanzhou visited the fields once before leaving. They respect you, he said quietly. They fear instability, Lin Qingshuang corrected. That too, he replied. Before departing, he handed her a small cloth-wrapped item. Inside was a metal tag. Military issue. A promise. If you need me, he said, send word. She closed her fingers around it. I won't need rescue, she replied. Only coordination. His gaze softened, just slightly. That's why, he said, I trust you. As the truck departed, Lin Qingshuang returned to the records room. She updated 1 line in the ledger. Status. Protected. For the first time since rebirth, her position was no longer fragile. And now, she could afford to move forward. Chapter 19. Marriage did not come immediately. That, too, was deliberate. The engagement alone had stabilized Lin Qingshuang's position, but marriage would amplify it. Amplification without preparation invited resistance. She waited. County officials visited twice within a month. The first time, they praised output. The second time, they asked questions. Your emergency grain reserves exceed expectations. Yes. Your loss rate is unusually low. Yes.
How?
Lin Qingshuang answered with numbers, not explanations. Systems. Schedules. Accountability. They nodded, impressed and uneasy. After the second visit, Red Flag Commune was listed as a learning point. Zhao received congratulations. So did Lin Qingshuang, privately. Public acknowledgement came later. Lin Milin heard the announcement standing at the edge of the field. Her hands were raw, her back bent. She understood then that even if Lin Qingshuang never spoke to her again, she would still live under her shadow. That night, Lin Qingshuang wrote to Gu Yanzhou. The environment is favorable. Marriage can proceed after autumn. She sealed the letter calmly. This was not delay. It was positioning. Gu Yanzhou's reply arrived within 10 days. Agreed. Autumn is optimal. I will align leave accordingly.
No sentiment.
Only confirmation. At the commune, pressure increased in subtler ways. At the meeting, she spoke once. Briefly. Precisely. She did not claim success. She described prevention. That impressed the right people. On the way back, Zhao sighed. You've gone too far to step back. Lin Qingshuang nodded. I know. The Lin family collapsed quietly.
No scandal. No denunciación.
Just absence. Her father's work unit reassigned him to clerical duties. Her brother's promotion never resumed. Her mother stopped writing. Silence replaced expectation. Lin Qingshuang read the final notice once and burned it. In the space, the fields were rich and endless. She harvested calmly, storing grain far beyond the commune's needs. Insurance. Autumn approached. With it, marriage. Not as an ending, but as consolidation. One evening, she stood alone at the edge of the fields. Red soil beneath her boots. Wind moving steadily across growing grain. She thought of her past life, small, trapped, starving. Then she thought of now. Position. Protection.
Choice.
This time, she was not being carried forward by fate. She was directing it. And soon, she would no longer stand alone at the front of it. Autumn would come. And with it, the next phase. Chapter 20. Autumn arrived with clear skies and heavy grain. Red Flag Commune became busy in a way it had never been before. Harvest schedules tightened. Storage rooms filled. Guards were posted at night, not because of theft, but because surplus invited attention. Lin Qingshuang oversaw everything personally. Marriage preparations did not look like joy. They looked like logistics. She submitted the paperwork first. Dates aligned with agricultural downtime. Guest lists limited. Procedures compliant.
No extravagance. No vulnerability.
Zhao reviewed the forms and exhaled slowly. You really are getting married? Yes. To a soldier, he added. Yes. That single fact settled many unspoken questions. County officials confirmed attendance. Not to celebrate, but to observe. Lin Qingshuang expected that. Visibility was no longer optional. Lin Milin heard the news while hauling grain sacks. Her grip slipped. The sack tore. Grain spilled across the ground. No one helped her gather it. That night, Lin Qingshuang stood in the space and reviewed supplies. She allocated grain for the wedding meal. Enough to be respectable. Not enough to provoke jealousy. Balance mattered. This marriage was not a retreat. It was a declaration. Gu Yanzhou arrived 1 week before the ceremony. This time, he did not come in uniform. That absence spoke louder than rank. He stayed in the guest quarters, kept his schedule clean, and followed local procedures without comment. They met once. In the records room. Not alone. Zhao present. Forms exchanged. Signatures confirmed. Only when the door closed behind Zhao did Gu Yanzhou speak quietly. Any objections? None that survived review, Lin Qingshuang replied. He nodded. Then it settled. No vows were discussed. No promises needed repetition. They had already been tested beyond ceremony. Outside, whispers grew louder. She married well. She planned this. She's dangerous. Lin Qingshuang did not correct them. Dangerous was acceptable. Unstable was not. The day before the ceremony, a county official approached her privately. You understand, he said carefully, that after this, you'll be watched more closely. Yes. And you're willing? Lin Qingshuang met his gaze steadily. I've been watched for years. That answer satisfied him. The wedding would proceed. The ceremony was brief. No red banners.
No speeches.
Just acknowledgement. 2 names. 2 stamps. Witnessed. Recorded. When it was done, nothing visibly changed. That was the point. Afterward, a single meal was shared. Simple dishes. Clean portions. Enough to mark the moment. Not enough to provoke comment. Gu Yanzhou stood beside Lin Qingshuang, expression composed. To outsiders, they looked calm, unremarkable. Only those who watched carefully noticed the shift. How cadres addressed her. How decisions were deferred without question. Marriage did not make her powerful. It made her irreversible. That night, Lin Qingshuang entered the space alone. She stood beside the spring. The water rose, steady and strong. For this life, she said softly, the foundation is complete. Outside, autumn wind moved through harvested fields. Inside Red Flag Commune, a new balance settled. The girl who had been sent down to disappear no longer existed. What remained was position, protection, and direction. The rise was no longer quiet, and it would not stop here. Chapter 21. Marriage changed nothing, and that was how everyone knew it had changed everything. The morning after the ceremony, Lin Qingshuang rose at the same hour, reviewed the same ledgers, and walked the same paths through the commune. No one congratulated her openly. They adjusted instead. Cadres waited for her arrival before meetings began. Production team leaders deferred decisions without being asked. Zhao noticed it first. "You didn't even take a day," he said quietly. "There's no gap to take," Lin Qingshuang replied. He studied her for a long moment. "County officials are asking if you'd be willing to assist with regional planning." She paused only a fraction of a second. "When?" "After winter." She nodded. "I'll prepare." Preparation meant records, comparative yields, loss prevention models. She began compiling them immediately. Gu Yanzhou watched from a distance. He did not intervene. He did not advise. That restraint was intentional. Her authority had to be hers alone. At night, Lin Qingshuang entered the space and reorganized storage. Not for survival now. For scale. The spring flowed steadily. The land felt ready. Something larger was approaching. The first request came from a neighboring commune. Then another. "How did you stabilize rations? How do you track labor efficiency? Can you share your ledger format?" Lin Qingshuang shared selectively. Enough to guide. Never enough to weaken her own position. Zhao was uneasy. "You're teaching them to compete." "No," she corrected. "I'm teaching them to survive." County officials visited again. This time, they did not walk the fields. They sat at the table. Questions were sharper. Forward-looking. "What would you do with additional authority?" Lin Qingshuang answered calmly. "Standardize accountability. And if people resist, then inefficiency will expose them." That answer drew a long silence. One official smiled faintly. "You speak like someone who expects resistance." "I expect reality," she replied. After they left, Zhao exhaled heavily. "They're testing you." "Yes." And Lin Qingshuang closed the ledger. They already decided. Outside, villagers whispered, "She's not just ours anymore." They were right. That night, Gu Yanzhou spoke for the first time since the wedding. "They'll move you soon," he said quietly. "Yes." "Are you ready?" Lin Qingshuang met his gaze. "I was ready before they noticed." Winter arrived early, but hunger did not. Red Flag Commune distributed reserves with precision. Other communes did not. The contrast was noted. Reports traveled upward. Lin Qingshuang's name appeared more frequently, always attached to numbers, never emotion. That was intentional. Emotion invited judgment. Numbers invited authority. One evening, a sealed notice arrived. Regional temporary appointment. Advisory capacity. Limited duration. Zhao read it twice before handing it to her. "This is bigger than the commune," he said quietly. "Yes." "And you're leaving?" "Partially," she replied. "Not abandoning." He nodded slowly. "Then Red Flag survives." That night, Lin Qingshuang stood in the space longer than usual. The land stretched endlessly now. The spring no longer overflowed. It waited, just like her. Outside, the commune slept under frost and stars. Inside, Lin Qingshuang stepped into the next phase of her life. She had mastered survival. She had secured protection. Now, she would shape systems. And once systems bent to her hand, There would be no returning to obscurity. Not in this life. Chapter 22. The regional office was colder than the commune. Not in temperature. In atmosphere. Lin Qingshuang arrived before sunrise, documents secured under her arm. The building was concrete, gray, and already busy with footsteps that did not acknowledge her presence. Temporary appointments rarely earned respect. She was seated at the side table, given no introduction.
No explanation.
The meeting began without her. Production shortfalls were discussed. Transport delays. Labor unrest. Excuses layered carefully to avoid responsibility. Lin Qingshuang listened. She took notes. She said nothing, until the regional deputy glanced at her and asked, almost as an afterthought, "Comrade Lin, you have experience stabilizing rations. Any thoughts?" Every eye turned.
She stood.
"Our problem is not production," she said evenly. "It's loss." Murmurs followed. She continued. Storage mismanagement, inaccurate labor reporting, and delayed redistribution create artificial shortages. Someone scoffed. "That's simplistic." Lin Qingshuang met his gaze. "So is hunger." Silence. She laid out figures, comparisons, evidence drawn directly from their own reports. The room shifted. This was not opinion. It was exposure. By the end of the session, no one dismissed her again. Temporary or not, she had spoken truth too cleanly to ignore. Resistance followed immediately. A senior planner cornered her in the corridor. "You're new," he said quietly. "Careful where you point numbers." Lin Qingshuang inclined her head politely. "Numbers point themselves." He smiled thinly. "People don't like mirrors." "They adjust when forced to," she replied. That afternoon she was assigned a task. Review 3 failing communes. Produce recommendations. No authority to enforce them. A test. She accepted without comment. Over the next week, she traveled constantly. She saw waste, favoritism, inflated reports, and fear. She documented everything. Not accusations. Patterns. When local cadres protested, she listened. When they lied, she recorded. When they begged, she remained still. At night, she entered the space briefly. Not to harvest. To think. Scale required discipline. Mercy now would cost lives later. When she submitted her report, it was concise. Brutal. Actionable. The regional deputy read it twice. "You understand this will anger people," he said. "Yes." "And you still recommend restructuring?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Good." That night, Gu Yanzhou met her outside the office. "They won't thank you," he said. "I'm not here to be thanked," Lin Qingshuang replied. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why they'll remember." The restructuring order was issued 2 days later. Limited. Targeted. Irreversible. 3 cadres were reassigned. 2 storage managers removed.
No announcements.
Just quiet movement. The region stabilized slightly within weeks. Enough to prove a point. Lin Qingshuang's appointment was extended. Not publicly, but indefinitely. She returned to Red Flag Commune briefly. Everything ran smoothly in her absence. That pleased her. Power that collapsed when you left was not power. It was control. At dusk, she stood beside Gu Yanzhou at the edge of the fields. "They'll keep pulling you upward," he said. "Yes. And it will get harder." "Yes." He looked at her steadily. "Do you regret it?" Lin Qingshuang watched the wind move through the grain. "No," she said. "I regret not doing it sooner." That night, she entered the space one last time before sleep. The land was silent. The spring steady.
No urgency.
No fear. She had crossed the line between reacting to the world and shaping it. From this point on, the game would not be survival. It would be governance. And she had already learned the rules. Chapter 23. Backlash never announced itself. It arrived disguised as procedure. Lin Qingshuang was informed that her next review would be comprehensive. The word carried weight. Comprehensive meant scrutiny. It meant files pulled from places she had never visited. Her travel approval slowed. Meeting invitations stopped arriving. Questions were redirected. Isolation, applied gently. The regional deputy warned her quietly. Someone filed concerns about your methods. Who? She asked. He shook his head. It doesn't matter. The concern exists. Lin Qingshuang nodded once. Then they'll want proof. Yes. She returned to her desk and began compiling. Not defense. Context. Her work was clean. That was her advantage.
Still, she adjusted.
Less visibility. More delegation. Let others present results she had designed. At night, Gu Yanzhou reviewed the situation with her. They're trying to freeze you out, he said. Yes. And if that fails, they'll try to discredit me. He frowned. You're not wrong often. I don't plan to be now. In the space, the spring flowed slower. Not weaker. Restrained. Like everything else. Pressure was building. The attack came from an unexpected angle. A report surfaced questioning the accuracy of red flag communes' historical data. Not current figures. Old ones. Years before Lin Qingshuang's arrival. But her name was attached to the system now. Zhao was summoned. He returned pale. They're implying long-term falsification, he said quietly. That we manipulated outcomes. Lin Qingshuang read the report carefully. The handwriting was precise. The accusations vague. Designed to imply, without proving. They want me to defend things I didn't control, she said. Yes. And if I can't, they'll say your methods rely on distortion. Lin Qingshuang closed the folder. Then we changed the frame. She requested a full audit. Voluntary. Open. Risky. The regional office was startled. You're inviting trouble, one official warned. I'm inviting clarity, she replied. Auditors arrived. They dug deep. Lin Qingshuang gave them everything. Every ledger. Every correction. Every margin note. Days passed. Silence stretched. Then, nothing exploded. Because nothing was hidden. The attempt stalled. Those who had pushed it grew quiet. Not defeated, but exposed. That silence was temporary. Lin Qingshuang knew better than to mistake pause for retreat. She adjusted strategy. Instead of defending her position, she widened it. She proposed regional data standardization, uniform ledgers, shared loss metrics. If adopted, her methods would become the norm. Attacking her would mean attacking the system. The proposal moved upward.
Slowly. Carefully.
Gu Yanzhou watched her work late into the night. You're turning pressure into momentum, he said. Yes. And making enemies permanent. Yes. He studied her. Does that bother you?
No, Lin Qingshuang replied.
Only unmanaged ones. Outside, winter deepened again. Food distribution held. Unrest did not spread. That mattered. In the space, Lin Qingshuang stood still, hands behind her back. She had learned something essential. Power invited resistance. Structure absorbed it. Tomorrow, the opposition would try again. She would be ready. Because now, she was no longer defending a position. She was building something that could not be removed without collapse. And no one was brave enough to risk that. Not yet. Chapter 24. The names surfaced quietly. Not in an accusation. In a seating chart. At the regional coordination meeting, Lin Qingshuang noticed the change immediately. A new figure sat beside the deputy director, close enough to whisper, far enough to avoid attention. Zhou Wenhai, Supply Bureau. Transferred from the provincial level 6 months earlier. His resume was flawless. Too flawless. When he spoke, he praised efficiency. When others argued, he mediated gently. When Lin Qingshuang presented data, he listened without interruption. Too carefully. After the meeting, her travel approval for the next week was delayed. Again. She did not ask why. She asked who signed it. Zhou Wenhai. That night, she reviewed everything connected to him. Transfers. Approvals. Quiet reversals of her recommendations. Nothing overt. Nothing provable. He was not attacking her. He was redirecting flow. A man who understood systems as well as she did. Gu Yanzhou read over her notes.
He's cautious, he said.
Yes, Lin Qingshuang replied. Which means he's dangerous. Why target you? Because I changed the balance without asking. In the space, the spring slowed further. Not weak.
Compressed.
Like breath held before impact. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Zhou Wenhai invited her to tea. Private. Polite. Optional but not really. The office was warm. The tea was good. You've made impressive progress, Zhou said mildly. Stabilization where there was none. Thank you, Lin Qingshuang replied. But rapid change creates shadows, he continued. People worry you move too independently. She met his gaze evenly. Independence produces results. Results without consensus are fragile. So is consensus without food, she replied. Zhou smiled faintly. You're sharp. I'm practical. He leaned back. I'm concerned your methods rely too much on personal competence. That's why I standardized them, Lin Qingshuang said calmly. The smile faded slightly. He set his cup down. Be careful, Comrade Lin. Structures outlive individuals. So do records, she replied. Silence followed. The tea cooled. They parted without hostility. But something fundamental had shifted. This was no longer indirect pressure. It was acknowledgement. They both understood now. Only one of them would define the next system. The response was immediate. 2 of Lin Qingshuang's proposals were postponed, pending review. Her appointment extension was delayed. Again, she did not react publicly. Instead, she submitted a request. Joint oversight. If her work required supervision, she welcomed it. But the oversight committee would include external auditors. Provincial. Zhou Wenhai objected quietly. Too quietly. The request moved forward. Gu Yanzhou exhaled slowly when he read the notice. You're forcing him into the light, he said. Yes. And if he pushes back? Then he confirms himself. That night, Lin Qingshuang entered the space. For the first time in months, the spring surged violently, water cresting over the stone edge. The land expanded in a sudden, decisive wave. She stood still, unafraid. The system responded to pressure the same way she did, by growing stronger. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside the regional office, lines were being drawn. This was no longer survival, no longer governance. It was succession. And Lin Qingshuang had just announced that she intended to stay. Chapter 25. The Oversight Committee was approved. That alone was a statement. Zhou Wenhai did not congratulate her. He did not oppose it publicly either. He adjusted. Lin Qingshuang recognized the pattern immediately. Meetings grew longer. Agendas thickened. Discussions circled without resolution. Delay was the weapon. She let it happen. While others debated hypotheticals, she prepared concrete trials. 3 communes volunteered, quietly encouraged, to implement her standardized system fully.
No publicity. No announcements.
Just execution. Within a month, grain loss dropped. Labor output stabilized. Transport errors vanished. Numbers spoke. When the Oversight Committee convened for the first formal review, those numbers sat neatly at the center of the table. Zhou Wenhai flipped through the report slowly. Pilot successes can be misleading, he said mildly. Then expand them, Lin Qingshuang replied. Several committee members exchanged glances. Expansion meant endorsement. Endorsement meant commitment. Zhou closed the folder. We'll observe further, he said. Lin Qingshuang nodded. Of course. Patience cost her nothing. Time was working for her now. The counterstrike came through personnel. 2 of Lin Qingshuang's most reliable liaisons were reassigned overnight.
No explanation.
No warning. One sent her a short note. I'm sorry. Zhao was furious. They're cutting your legs. They're testing how I walk without them, Lin Qingshuang replied. She replaced both positions within a day. Quietly, with people trained under her system. Zhou Wenhai noticed. He invited her again, this time with others present. Your adaptability is impressive, he said, voice smooth. But it risks instability. Instability comes from secrecy, Lin Qingshuang replied. Not transparency. A subtle shift followed. Some committee members began directing questions to her instead of Zhou. He noticed that too. That night, Gu Yanzhou spoke bluntly. He'll escalate. Yes. And you? I'll finish building the floor before he tries to pull it out. In the space, the land expanded again, slow, steady. No surge this time. Just certainty. Escalation arrived disguised as reform. Zhou Wenhai proposed a regional consolidation plan. Centralized control. Unified authority. Efficiency framed as necessity. Lin Qingshuang read the draft carefully. It removed redundancies and concentrated power in his hands. She raised no objection during the meeting. She requested one addition: mandatory transparency audits, independent review cycles, public metrics. The room went quiet. Zhou Wenhai smiled thinly. That may slow progress. Progress that fears visibility isn't progress, Lin Qingshuang replied evenly. The proposal stalled. Not rejected. Balanced.
For now.
Outside, rumors spread. She's challenging him. She's too ambitious. She's right. That last whisper mattered. That night, Lin Qingshuang stood beside Gu Yanzhou. They won't stop, he said. No, she replied. But neither will I. Above them, the sky was clear. Below them, systems shifted. Zhou Wenhai had wanted to absorb her work. Instead, he had elevated her. From this moment on, the contest was visible, and visibility meant choice. Soon, the region would have to decide whose structure it trusted more. And Lin Qingshuang was ready to make that decision unavoidable. Chapter 26. Choice arrived disguised as crisis. Late winter storms cut transport routes across 2 counties. Grain convoy stalled. Reports conflicted. Panic spread faster than facts. The regional office convened an emergency session. Zhou Wenhai took control immediately. Centralized orders. Suspended local discretion. Wait for consolidated data. Lin Qingshuang listened. Then she asked one question. How long? Zhou glanced up. Until full verification. And if people run out before that? They won't, he said smoothly. We have reserves. On paper, Lin Qingshuang replied. Silence cut through the room. She stood. Authorize local release under audit tracking, she said. Use verified communes as relay points. That risks disorder, Zhou said. No, she replied calmly. It prevents starvation. The deputy director hesitated. Time mattered. He nodded. Approved. Pilot only. Zhou's expression tightened. Lin Qingshuang moved immediately. Orders flowed. Routes adjusted. Within 48 hours, food reached the blocked areas.
No chaos.
No loss. Only relief. By the time Zhou's consolidated data arrived, the crisis was already over. He had lost the initiative. And everyone had seen it. After the crisis, silence followed. Not the tense kind, the reflective kind. Reports circulated. Side-by-side comparisons. One approach had waited. The other had acted. Zhou Wenhai requested a review. This time, the room was different. Questions leaned toward Lin Qingshuang. How did you verify so quickly? How were losses prevented? How was compliance maintained? She answered simply. Systems already in place. Zhou spoke less. When he did, it sounded defensive. That was new. Later, a quiet directive arrived. Lin Qingshuang's advisory role was expanded. Decision authority. Temporary. Zhao read it twice before smiling. He miscalculated, he said. Yes, Lin Qingshuang replied. He assumed control was the same as stability. That night, Gu Yanzhou poured tea and said quietly, They trust you now. Not fully, she replied. Enough. In the space, the spring flowed freely again.
No question. No surge.
Balanced. As it should be. Zhou Wenhai did not concede. But he retreated.
Subtly.
His proposal softened. His objections narrowed. He stopped positioning himself at the center. Others noticed. They adjusted. Lin Qingshuang did not pursue him. Victory did not require humiliation. It required permanence. She submitted a final proposal. Regional Emergency Response Protocol. Decentralized execution. Centralized transparency.
It passed.
Unanimously. Zhou Wenhai did not vote. He abstained. That abstention echoed louder than opposition. That night, Lin Qingshuang walked the quiet corridors alone. She had crossed the invisible line. From contender to standard, the region would not remember who proposed what. Only what worked. And what worked bore her structure. Outside, snow melted into mud. Inside, foundations set. The final phase had begun. Not conquest, but consolidation. And this time, there would be no reversal. Chapter 27. The settlement did not arrive with ceremony. It arrived with paperwork. A transfer notice circulated quietly through the regional office. Zhou Wenhai was reassigned to a research and archival role.
No demotion. No promotion.
Removed from operations. Removed from leverage. The language was neutral. The meaning was not. Lin Qingshuang read the notice once and set it aside. She had expected this outcome. The system preferred equilibrium to conflict. Zhou Wenhai had become imbalance. They passed each other in the corridor that afternoon. He stopped first. "You planned further than I thought," he said calmly. "You assumed I wanted your position," Lin Qingshuang replied. "I wanted the structure to survive you." He studied her for a long moment. "You'll face resistance at higher levels." "Yes." "And you'll still proceed." "Yes." He smiled faintly, not bitter, resigned. "That," he said, "is why they chose you." When he left, no one watched him go. That was the true ending. Power was not lost loudly. It simply stopped responding. Lin Qingshuang returned to her desk. Work continued. Formal confirmation followed a week later.
Permanent appointement.
Regional operations oversight. Clear mandate. Limited term, renewable. Zhao received the notice at Red Flag Commune and laughed aloud. "They finally admitted it," he said. "They acknowledged it," Lin Qingshuang corrected. Acknowledgement was safer than praise. She returned to the commune briefly. Nothing had deteriorated. That mattered. Villagers greeted her the same way they always had. Respectful. Uncurious. Stability was visible now. Gu Yanzhou walked beside her through the fields. "You're done fighting," he said. "No," she replied. "I'm done proving." That distinction mattered. At night, she entered the space. The land stretched farther than she could see. The spring fed new channels without guidance. The system no longer required intervention. Like her work outside, it had learned its own balance. She smiled faintly. That was enough. The final report was submitted at the end of winter. Loss rates normalized. Emergency protocols formalized. Regional variance reduced. No signatures stood out. No names highlighted. Lin Qingshuang insisted on that. Success that belonged to one person invited challenge. Success that belonged to a system endured. At the closing meeting, the deputy director spoke briefly. "This framework will continue," he said. "With or without us." That was the highest endorsement possible. That night, Lin Qingshuang stood outside under clear stars. Gu Yanzhou joined her. "It's finished," he said. "Yes." "And the future?" She looked toward the dark horizon. "Now," she said calmly, "we make it boring." He laughed quietly. Boring meant stable. Stable meant safe. The girl who had once been sent down to disappear had rewritten the terms of survival. Not by shouting. Not by burning everything down. But by building something that could not be removed without consequences no one wanted to face. Tomorrow, work would resume. And that was the victory. Chapter 28. Spring returned without announcement. Snow melted into soft earth. New shoots rose where fields had once cracked under hunger. Lin Qingshuang returned to Beijing on official business 3 years later. The city had changed.
So had she.
Her name carried weight now, attached to policy papers, training manuals, and regional models quietly adopted elsewhere. No banners welcomed her. That was intentional. She walked past familiar streets without slowing. The Lin family lived in a smaller courtyard now. When her mother opened the door, she did not recognize her at first. Then she did. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. "We heard," her mother said finally. "You're doing well." Lin Qingshuang looked at the courtyard. The furniture. The careful frugality. "They said you couldn't survive," her father added weakly. "I did," she replied.
No accusation. No worms.
"Just fact." They invited her in. She declined. "I came to close something," she said calmly. "Not reopen it." Her cousin Lin Milan watched from behind a doorframe, thinner, older, eyes dulled by years she could not escape. Lin Qingshuang met her gaze once, then looked away. Closure did not require forgiveness, only distance. She turned and left. Nothing followed her. Red Flag Commune no longer needed her presence. That was the proof. She visited occasionally, not to supervise, to observe. Children attended school regularly. Grain storage was full. Disputes were resolved through process, not fear. Zhao had retired. His successor ran things competently.
Proudly.
"You built something that works without you," he said once. "That was always the goal," Lin Qingshuang replied. Gu Yanzhou remained steady at her side. Their life was quiet, intentional. They did not speak often about the past. They did not need to. One evening, as they walked along the ridge overlooking the fields, he asked, "If you hadn't been reborn, do you think you'd still be here?" Lin Qingshuang considered the question carefully.
"No," she said.
"But that life taught me what not to repeat." He nodded. That was enough. At night, she still entered the space. The land had expanded beyond counting. The spring flowed gently, endlessly. It no longer responded to urgency, only continuity. Years later, the phrase "red flag model" appeared in internal documents. No author credited. No origin story recorded. Lin Qingshuang preferred it that way. Legacy did not need a name. It needed durability. On an ordinary afternoon, she stood beside a window, watching light move across the floor. There was no sense of loss.
No lingering resentment.
The past no longer reached for her. She had outrun it, not by speed, but by direction. In the space, she stood once more beside the spring. The water reflected her clearly now. Not the girl sent down to suffer. Not the woman who clawed her way upward. But someone whole. This life, she said softly, was enough. Outside, the world continued. Systems ran. People ate. Children grew. The earth remained red, fertile, enduring. And Lin Qingshuang walked forward, unburdened, into a future she had already secured. Not just for herself, but for everyone who would never know how close things had once come to breaking.
And